Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just waiting for folks to come on in. We're going to wait another minute or two for people to log in into Zoom. I'm the planning director, Bill Fazioli, and we'll make some introductions once we see a few more people join us tonight.
Yeah.
It's still too early to turn the heat off, apparently. So my daughter rented an apartment up in Danvers in this old house. She still had steam heat. It felt so nice to be in a house with steam heat. Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
steam
like
heat
really
too.
great.
It is nice.
Yeah.
It really does like radiate like a certain warmth that on a really cold day it's nice, but
Right.
it's not that great in the spring or the spring or the fall time.
We'll just get started another minute or so. So I'm curious, who ever heard of Zoom before 2020?
We did WebEx.
It wasn't Zoom what the superheroes did when they
Yes. Well, there was a kid show growing up called Zoom. I thought it was great.
Zoom.
Zoom, yes.
Right.
It's a great theme song too.
I must say though, having, this pandemic's been horrible, but a couple of positive things have come out of it. And one of it is the use of technology to make it easier for people to meet and really facilitate a lot of our meetings. When we're having meetings at work, we can have double the amount of meetings that we used to have before because now we don't have to worry about travel time and everything else you have to deal with. But it has facilitated meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
But you do lose that personal touch, face to face.
Well, great. We'll go ahead and get started. It's a little after, it's almost 7:05. I'm Bill Fazioli, the Director of Planning with the City of East Providence. Thank you for coming in and joining us tonight. Normally we would have done this in person, but we all know the story over the last year, so we're doing these remote meetings. And it's part of the city's comprehensive plan process. Tonight really is just us listening to members of the community to talk about aspects of East Providence they like and aspects they would like to see us do better and some aspirational items as well. So it's really your opportunity to have this. We'll have a discussion that will be facilitated by our consultant, Horsley Witten, and I'll let them introduce themselves. But before we get started, Mayor De Silva, would you like to say some remarks before we go ahead and get going tonight?
I think this is a once in every 10-year process that we embark on, and I'm happy to see that we're able to do it and get it moving. I'm learning a lot about the process myself, and I hope that we get some good feedback from this group today. Thank you for being part of it.
Great. And just a little bit about the process. We went through an RFP process middle of last year, where it was right around when the pandemic was taking hold. We did an RFP process. We got solicitations from 7 firms to go ahead and conduct the study. We did interviews for the 3 finalists, and we were very happy with the unanimous selection of the committee of Horsley Witten to conduct the process for us. And they've turned out to be an excellent partner in this process so far. And I'll go ahead and introduce Krista, who will introduce her colleagues and take us through the evening's session.
Thank you, Bill. So with me tonight, I have Jeff Davis. So he's a planner with me at Horsley Witten. And we also are teaming with McMahon Associates. They are transportation planners, engineers, so they're sort of our transportation experts. And so Natalie Raffel is here as well. So they're gonna help us facilitate our conversation today. I am gonna start with a presentation. So I'm gonna share my screen. Great. So we're going to start with an overview of the comprehensive plan and update process. We're going to break out into small groups. So there'll be virtual breakout rooms and you don't have to do anything. We'll take care of it. And then we'll come back together and talk about what was discussed in our group, you know, kind of the highlights. All right, so what is the comprehensive plan? It is the shared vision that you have for the city's future, and it outlines a pathway and how you're going to get there. So, and why do you have this plan? Because you really want to protect what you love about the city and really sort of target where you could be better, where there could be improvements, and create opportunities where there can be transformation. The plan is used by local decision makers like the city council, boards and committees, and commissions, city departments. It's also used by state agencies and private investors or developers. It gives them insight into how you see the city and where things are going to happen. But ultimately, it's a guiding tool for decisions about businesses, how to support local business development, how to prioritize city investments in services and infrastructure, decisions about promoting fairness and access to opportunities for all residents, so promoting equity. And it has guidance on development, so what it looks like and where it happens, and protecting natural areas and historic sites. But as the name suggests, it really covers a lot of topics. It's comprehensive. So in addition to those things, it also talks about how we get around the city, you know, traffic, walking, biking, parks, any recreational programming, our neighborhoods, where we live. And also important are natural hazards and climate change. So thinking, this is a 20-year plan, so thinking ahead into the future and how are those going to impact all of these aspects of living in the city. We organize it in sort of three buckets, if you will. So first, we want to answer the question, where have we been and where are we now? So that's a lot of data. We look at trends. You know, the last plan was updated about 10 years ago. So a lot of work has been happening at the city. So we want to look at some plans, studies, and projects that have been going on and really take stock on current needs. And then we have to think about where we want to go. So these are our future needs. What is the vision and what are our goals to reach that vision? And then how we're going to get there. So this is an actionable plan. There is an action plan component to it. So we want to lay out strategies, prioritize actions, who will help move those actions forward, and what's the time frame we want them to be completed. So this is our update process. So we started in the fall and we did a lot of data collection, you know, reviewed the plans and studies and really kind of understand what's happening on the ground in the city. So through the winter and into the spring, like now, we're listening to you all. We had a survey that was out, so hopefully you all had a chance to take part in that. And we're really trying to understand what are the issues and what your vision for the city is. In the summer, we'll come back out and we'll test our ideas, you know, looking at different strategies, making sure that we're on the right track, you know, are things appropriate for the city? And then in the fall to present a draft plan and probably have another larger community event, you know, perhaps we'll be in person. And our questions will be, did we get this right? You know, what's missing? And we'll do some refinement, and then looking forward to adoption in the winter. So those are public hearings. The planning board will approve the plan and the city council will adopt it. So I was wondering if folks wanted to open up their chat and kind of thinking about what we really love about East Providence, and what is something that you value about East Providence. If you had an opportunity to write in the chat box and we can see what your ideas are, you know, what is something that you really value about East Providence? And then when are we at our best? So this is thinking about, I know, what is our vision? What do we value and when are we at our best? Nobody has any ideas? well, something to think about when we break out into our small groups. So this is a visionary process. We want to think big. So when we think about the questions that we're going to ask, what are we valuing about the city, and when we're kind of presenting ourselves at our finest. So tonight's discussion, so we'll be in virtual groups, and we're going to focus on 3 primary questions. So the first is, what needs to be protected for future generations? The second is, what's doing okay but needs support or investment to really reach its full potential? And the last one is, what should be transformed and reimagined? And the answers to these questions, they can be a place, they can be a project, it can be a program, it could be a tradition that happens in the city. So we're really talking about anything that really resonates with you around these 3 ideas. What needs to be protected? What do we need to support or provide investments? And then what can really be transformed and reimagined? So what's our big idea? I see some chats. Ethnic diversity. The city has yet a small town feel. I like that one. That one's great. So kind of thinking about those things when we answer these questions. So how can we continue some of those ideas about what do we value as a community, and what really sort of when we present ourselves at our best. So we are going to break out into groups, and I'm going to check in with my colleague Jeff to see. It seemed like we had a good enough crowd coming in. So what's our?
We're at 15 members of the public plus elected officials and staff.
Okay.
So I think 2 rooms is probably appropriate.
Sure. Great. So we're going to break out into our groups. So Natalie and I will be facilitating one of each group, and so we have some ground rules. So be kind and respectful for one another. We're here to share our ideas. We're not looking for consensus. We just want to hear all the opportunities that we should be considering while we're drafting this plan. Be concise. We are here for a small amount of time. We want to be respectful of your time. So, we'll try to, get to the headline and talk about our ideas. You can still reach out to us if you have an aha moment later on tonight or tomorrow. But we're going to try to be respectful of time tonight. We're asking you to be open to new ideas. Again, this is an opportunity to think big. And then, as always, we're trying to be patient with technology. So just, we'll all be mindful of that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll take a look. So that's great. We have a wonderful crowd tonight. It's very exciting. So I'm going to ask Jeff to let it go, and we're all gonna, so you'll end up seeing, if you haven't done a breakout group before, it'll look just exactly the same. It'll just be a fewer people.
And
So Krista,
Krista,
we just got 2 new people, so I need to redo the breakout rooms to include them. So just give me 2 minutes and we'll move everyone. Hold on.
and also Krista, just so Councilman Cahoon joined us. just
Oh,
so,
great, wonderful. So I don't know if, Councilman, if you wanted to, I'll give you an opportunity if you wanted to say something.
No, I'm along for the ride primarily, and I'd like to be useful. So
Great, thank you.
All right, folks, just one.
So how many, that's great. So for those of, how many folks are familiar with the comprehensive plan? You've heard of it before? A couple. It's a brand new, like I said, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We can do a short report out from, so we had 3 groups or 2?
2.
Groups. Great. So, so Natalie and I will just do a short report out, and then I had a great question from Libby in our group that I want to part of next steps, and I want to make sure that I address it. And I asked her if I could address it to everyone in the group because it was an important question. So in our group, we had a lot of conversation about green space. You know, we need to protect the green space in the city, make those connections. We talked about walkability, bikeability, being able to get around the city without a car, to parks, to the library, to shops and stores. There's a lot of desire for that. What else am I had some notes while we were talking. We talked about, you know, what are some of the obstacles that are preventing businesses from establishing or staying established, retaining businesses, and trying to identify what they are and find ways to overcome them so we can have a more thriving, either a city center or, you know, in Riverside Square or some areas of the city that could benefit from that. So very brief, I didn't know if anyone in our group wanted to add anything. We did.
I did quickly, if I can. I think we also talked about, you know, sort of the proactive planning of, you know, corridors or districts for certain types of businesses, and really setting that tone so businesses know where they're looking when they're looking to come into the city.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. Natalie.
Yep. So our group at first talked a lot about open space and the need to preserve nature. So that being a big theme of what was important to protect for future generations. We also had discussion about the bike path as a good community amenity, diversity in the population as something to preserve and protect. And then looking towards what needs improvement, we discussed the lack of a real city center or downtown, how East Providence is made up of a lot of different neighborhoods, and there's a lack of connectivity between all of them, and especially with I-95 running through the city. So yeah, connectivity was a major theme, the need for one central downtown area, but then also like diversity of local businesses, just paying attention to different types of development that could come in to promote that type of community feel. Oh, and also identifying ways to promote the history of the city. So historical markers, things like that.
That's great.
And then for, sorry, for transformation, we talked about the waterfront a lot and the potential there, how it can be improved. We heard from the mayor on the plans to connect the 10-mile bike path area down to potentially the East Bay bike path. So just more of that connectivity waterfront theme.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, we had some similar, a little bit of overlap, but not much. So that was great. So I wanted to talk about next steps. So we had a question in our group asking about how we're reaching a more diverse spectrum of city residents. We have a lot of Portuguese residents, a lot of Cape Verdean residents, and how are we reaching everyone? This is a very small group. We've had small groups all these past few weeks. And so our intent is to make sure that we reach a lot of these organizations that are connected with those communities. So we we will meet with them and try to get connected with them. So our intent is to make sure that we are talking with everyone in the community that lives here, and everyone who, because everyone experiences the city in a different way. So that is our intent. We do recognize that this is a small group. We did have our survey. We had about 340 that responded. Again, we want to make sure that we're reaching everyone in the city. So if there's a lot of community groups out there that we can tap into, and if it's a meeting like this, or if we're able to over the next couple of months have some sort of social distancing gathering, we'll consider that. We have to be, still be safe about how we do that, but we do want to make sure that we're able to reach folks. The library has offered to help people who want to participate in these meetings, if it's access to a computer. So we had someone that connected last week, but we are open to connect with, if you have a person that we should be reaching out to, please let us know who it is, and we'll make a time to meet with them and members of their community or their organization. But that is our effort, and I do recognize that this is a small group, and it's not the voice of the entire city, but we are going to do our best to try to reach as many people as we can. So with that, we have one more meeting next week. Again, you don't have to be in Ward 4, but so tell your friends if they couldn't make our last 3 meetings, or your neighbors, they can still participate. We talked about a lot of places in the city, so we're interested. If they're interested in participating, they can sign on for next week. Any questions that I can answer? So the chat. Oh, historic venues are being treated. I'm not quite sure, Joan, what that question is. Are treated in the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
So there is a section about historic resources, and we do talk about preservation of important historic resources, cultural resources. So that's, that encompasses historic homes, historic structures such as venues. So that is part of the comprehensive plan. So we do talk about that, and we'll have a goal and some actions related to that. Is there something specific that you were?
Well, specifically the carousel.
The carousel. Yep. That's
needs a lot of love. So
it does. It does. Yes, it's an important destination too. So it will be talked about. Was that one of your protect?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's your honor. Yep. So we will be referencing that for sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Krista, is it okay
Yes.
if, like, when we were in the breakout room, Mike was just getting ready to speak, and then all of a sudden the time cut off. I didn't want to, maybe he did have something to say, and I think that James Michaud has had his hand up for a little bit.
Okay.
But if I don't know if Mike wants to finish his thoughts and maybe share it with the whole group. I just felt bad that he was in the middle of saying something and he got cut off. But Mike is not. Maybe Mike walked away and he's not at the thing right now. But I just felt bad about that.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And we also
there he is. There's Mike. I can see him now. Maybe you're muted, Mike.
You're on mute. I'm going to get a pin that says you're on mute. There you go.
Okay.
There you go, Mike. Yes.
Okay. My comment for tonight was just basically about the bike path that goes across Wachemocket Cove.
Right.
There's a little inlet there, and that inlet is totally inaccessible for any kayak or anything. I think it would be a wonderful improvement if that opening could be, a small bridge could be raised there or something, so people could come into the cove and use it as a kayak area.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I think he
froze.
I think he froze. James, I see your hand up.
It's a beautiful cove, but you can't get into it because of.
Yes, Mike, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, James.
Okay, are you hearing me?
I do, I hear you.
Okay, my question is about, any redressing of the zoning laws applicable to the comprehensive thing? Is that something that would be involved in that?
Yes, so part of the comprehensive plan looks at land use, so that's very broad and general. And so we talk about land use very generally in the comprehensive plan, and we compare, we do what our future is, and it's in a map, and then we compare that to the zoning, and if it doesn't match, then we have to make recommendations to change the zoning.
Okay. And the reason I asked, I had looked into, I have enough property to put a 2-family on, but because you have to move everything 15 feet from the border, the street border, that you, in my property, and actually in many of the properties in the Riverside area, you end up with this house surrounded by a little bit of land all around. And it's not what the neighborhood was historically built like. And for people to have a small lot and have a usable space, the zoning law doesn't quite jive with that. And, you know, not everybody can afford 2 acres with, you know, a big spread out front. And I just think with the rising population and the price of housing, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense in certain areas. You know, if you're in Pentucket Avenue or the Veterans, you don't want to be directly on the street. But I'm only 5 feet from the street, and you know, I don't hear any traffic at all. It's beautiful. I love this neighborhood because of that, because you have a nice backyard and all that. And now, if I were to build make a studio apartment for someone, which is lots of children out here on the school buses, someone's got to live someplace. I would have to destroy essentially my whole yard, and that's in keeping with the green space. It's like, you know.
So that's something, I mean, we can take that back and think about it. I mean, there is, you know, we talked a little bit about this in our group. So the zoning came about after places were already built, like our neighborhoods were already built in some cases. So they're conforming is sort of the technical term that's used. So you have to go through a process to get
a variance.
Variance, right. Trying not to use all the technical terms because that's how.
Yeah, I was also informed that it could cost me a lot of money, and
it is a barrier.
And no gain or anything. I do know that some of these laws are, from what I found out. I mean, I plugged in a copied and paste and found that Utah has the exact same laws. So someone's buying these laws, and they're not fitting to the particular neighborhoods. I mean, you know, Riverside zoning might be and should be a little different from, I don't know, Kent Heights, and you know they were built along different historical parameters.
Exactly.
And it just seems to me lazy, and maybe a bunch of money to just like buy some law from some Laws R Us and say this is going to apply. I don't really know, but this is my impression that it was just like, oh, we'll just buy these laws and apply them to everyone, and it doesn't really make sense.
The zoning has been around for a while. You know, and it has been amended over the years, and I mean, that's something that we'll look at. You know, and we'll see if you know, what that entails. And so yes, I do recognize that. You know, as I mentioned to my group, I live in Riverside. I'm quite familiar with, you know, the small lot and all of that. So we will, that is something that we will look at, and what are strategies, if there are any. But I do recognize that.
And if I may say one other thing, and it's about Bold Point, and I don't know what the development is going on, but I was from Quincy and Boston and Massachusetts, and I know Mayor Menino up there did a great job when he included a path all along the shore, so that it was all available to anybody. And I think originally there was some fight about that, but it worked out beautifully. And I hope that the shoreline is meant for everybody. You know, you can have luxury apartments, marinas, or whatever. But
we talked about that in our group too, making sure that there is access.
Yeah, it's just nice to walk in, and it gives the feeling to the community that you're not excluded.
Yeah,
you know.
Krista, can I say something in response to Mr. Michaud?
Yes.
And sure. This is real quick, but it's interesting because just yesterday I had a conversation with a property owner who has an extra lot, and he's on Burgess Avenue. So Burgess Avenue, all the houses are right to the street, right? Not much frontage, but the current zoning would require him to have this one house that would be set back while all the other houses are right on the street. And you know, I explained to him that he'd have to go for a variance, but he brought up the same concerns that Mr. Michaud had, that, yeah, this is going to be an extra cost for me. I got to do a whole survey. So he brought up a lot of the same concerns you had. So you're not alone in saying that. And that's why I think we have to look at all of our zoning, because a lot of our zoning laws were put in place decades ago, and things have changed and attitudes have changed. As for waterfront access, Bill Fazioli could probably speak better to this, but there is a requirement that any development that occurs on the waterfront, which the waterfront of East Providence was primarily for over the last 100 years has been heavy industrial oil tanks. You look at the pictures from the 1940s and 50s, you'd be in awe. You wouldn't believe what these places used to look like. But there is a requirement that there's waterfront access, and discussion with anybody who wants to come there. The main thing that we push is we want connection all the way along that waterfront, so that I want people to be able to walk from the furthest point north all the way south along the waterfront, and also using the bike paths. That's something we want to see happen.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. So it is 8:33, so I want to be respectful. We said 8:30, but I'm happy to, if folks have other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I can stick around. So I'll let, any final thoughts or words? All right. Well, thank you so much.
I have a question. I don't mean.
Oh, yes.
I just want, you mentioned, and they were talking about zoning reform. Is that something that also is going to be a public thing, or is that going to be handled by the planning department to make it conform with the comprehensive plan?
So it's a public process that all goes through a public process. Yes. Definitely. All right. Well, I thank you all. I'm glad you all turned out. We had our small groups. That was great. All great ideas. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming.
I appreciate it.
Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.